Coming up is Denny from EOS Nation. They're going to talk about the referendum contracts for EOS, and this is a huge missing piece right now that's going to let EOS jump forward. When the community is able to vote on the referendums and what we want to happen next, we'll be able to start implementing fixes much more quickly. So welcome to the stage for the to talk about the referendum contracts. We got Denny.
Awesome time to spend time with the community, learn from each other, socialize. My name's Daniel Keys. I'm the COO and co-founder of EOS Nation. I'm joined by our CTO, Denis and we're really excited to tell you guys about the referendum system that we had the pleasure to be a part in contributing to. We just launched our beta just a few days ago. And I'm going to take you guys just a little through what we did and the problems we're trying to solve. So as you all know, EOS is a community-governed blockchain. The code and the core protocol upgrades are technically could be contributed to by the community. We get to decide as community members changes to the core protocol. We have a worker proposal fund, which last I checked this morning, there's just under $90 million US in tokens sitting in there right now. It's been collecting about $1 million in EOS a day since we launched, but it's locked in there with no mechanism for the community to vote on how can we spend this. We've got a constitution, and right within that constitution is what governs the rules of this blockchain and you know, how we can interact with each other. And there's an article in it, Article 11, that explains the rules for how can we amend this constitution. The Constitution and its subordinate documents shall not be amended except by a vote of token holders with no less than 15% vote participation among tokens, no fewer than 10 more yes than no votes, sustained for 30 continuous days within a 120-day period. So this is telling us right in the Constitution that as a token holder, you have a right to vote to make changes to that Constitution. And EOS is continuing to evolve every day, and currently though, the only people who have any control are the 21 elected block producers. Token holders have currently the ability to vote for block producers, and that was built right into the system contract of EOS. But there was never a mechanism created at launch that would give token holders an ability to actually vote for questions like, can we make a change to this constitution? And that's where the referendum system comes in. So what we wanted to do is enable EOS token holders to vote on proposals with their staked tokens. And it's made up of 4 kind of key component parts. There is a forum smart contract that was created by our friends at EOS Canada. And that is what enables you to submit a question on the chain and allow you to solicit feedback, or community members can basically vote on that with a yes or a no. Then we have a tally system built by Denny of EOS Nation, and that's what's actually counting, because just like block producer, of your staked vote is what counts as the weight of your vote. We need to be able to tell how much EOS each person who has voted has staked, and that's what the tally does. And then we have an EOS portal. So this is something that was designed by the guys at EOS Tribe, and the guys at GenerEOS did a lot of work in coding it together for us. And this is meant to be both an educational platform as well as a place where people can actually go and very easily vote on the proposals that have been submitted. And we wanted to make it important that anybody can be comfortable servicing themselves in the platform they're comfortable with. We didn't want to get a situation where we had members of the community who wanted to participate and give their voice, but they didn't trust this third-party portal with their private keys. We wanted to make sure that they could vote in the platform that they're already comfortable with. You know, for example, if they're using GrayMass Wallet, they should be able to vote for a proposal within GrayMass Wallet without exposing their private key to some alternative. So this is what our EOS Votes portal looks like. It's a simple web. You can go to eosvotes.io. The main thing you'll see at the top is basically educational content. So we want to make it dead easy for someone who's maybe not as familiar with the intricacies of the governance system of EOS to learn a little bit about what is a referendum, what's its purpose, how does it work, how can I participate. And if you scroll a little further down, you'll see the proposals. You can expand them. This is what a proposal looks like on the vote. You can see we have a question that's posed here. We have some data at the bottom display. We can see that 94% of people have voted yes for this. We can see the number of EOS that's staked towards it, the number of people who have voted. We can see an expiry date. It's all clean, easy, point, click. It's integrated with Scatter. We're working towards adding support for other things like links. This is what it looks like when you're casting your vote. You just click that vote button. This will pop up here. And you can select either yes or no, or you can remove your vote. And it's basically that simple. And I'll pass it on to Dennis to talk a little bit about the tally.
Oh. All right, well, thank you very much. I'm going to be talking about the vote tally, which is essentially the voting counting mechanism behind the scenes to do all the complicated vote tally. We actually spent a lot of weeks questioning people. There's a few people in the room that have questioned about, how do we handle proxies? How do we handle, vote decay? So all those things are getting handled by the vote tally. And I'm going to show you, not too technical, because I know this is not a technical crowd. Really big picture. Essentially, we take the tables. So the authoritative data source is EOS. So all the data, the voting weight, the voting table, self-delegated bandwidth, which proposals, which votes, is actually pulled from EOS. So EOS is the authoritative source of data, and then how you compute that is using the authoritative source. So if someone else made a different implementation, we would have the same answers as long as we're using the same sort of counting algorithms. We've actually used a really nice product, again, from EOS Canada, Diffuse, which allows me to take a snapshot of a table at a particular block number, which is really powerful because that way the chain is live. So, and sometimes to do these computation or these get table queries, it can take a little while. It takes about like 3 minutes to run through all of the get queries. So what we can do with Diffuse is actually get a table at a particular block number. Now I think EOS has a state history plugin, but essentially you snapshot at a block number, you do your calculations using a simple Node.js applications, then I upload it onto an S3 bucket, archive the historical data, because as we all know, RAM is really expensive on EOS, and I don't want to fork up gigabytes worth of RAM to store historical vote tallying. So that's kind of like the high-level mechanisms. At the end of the day, it's just a JSON file that's hosted on an S3 bucket. So it's a reliable endpoint. Every 1,000 block intervals, there's a new JSON file that gets pushed. And then as a UI user interface, you would just point to the stats. And the stats would have all the voting tally aggregated data. So you're not downloading all the votes, all the staked users. You just want what you need for that proposal. So it's kind of like the snippets of all the computation that happened. And I am downloading about 270,000 rows of voting information every 5-10 minutes. So any application that wants to run a tally, you would have to download megabytes and megabytes worth of data every 5-10 minutes. And people are lazy, so they just use this. So there's an endpoint as well. So right now it's code. There's proxies, staked accounts, and we also have the current supply. So we need to calculate the 15% of token holders. So all the values that I use to calculate will be in there. And I think there's a few Boolean operations. Do we have vote participation, 15% voters? And do we have the historical votes? Right now, we don't have a proposal that has 15% vote participation, because that's 150 million votes, which we don't have. Right now, we have I think the biggest one might be 500,000. So we need more proxies to start voting, or large whales to increase those proposals. We talked about the different UIs. So in the previous slide, you just saw a JSON file. And the JSON file feeds blocks.io. Syed and Jay created blocks.io, and they have a referendum section, actually, and all sorts of people, all the guys from EOS Cafe, have a referendum section that has the percentage, and it's pulling off that API. Another one, for example, is EOS Authority same things, pulls from that JSON file and displays the data in a different way. And they have all these graphs, and it's amazing. I'm super impressed in what they're doing with my data as a JSON file. So you can have these graphs, these sort of historical charts. Really impressive. I have no idea how these guys are doing it. It's amazing. So far we've got about 7 different UIs. 8 if you can include the ones we created. So we have a command line, EOSC, Blocks.io, Graymass, EOS Toolkit, EOS Authority, EOSForum.org, my EOS Toolkit. So what's great with EOS is you don't actually need a centralized database. It's a decentralized database. And all the different UIs can all point to the same source of truth. It's not actually going. But join us and test, and we can test it out. It's currently running beta. So yeah, we'll definitely love to get your feedback. So if there's any questions, or let us know. Thank you very much.
I have votes. I vote for a proxy. That proxy votes for a proposal. I remove my votes from the proxy. I vote for another proxy. What happens?
Yeah, perfect. That's a great question. So with proxies, essentially, if you delegate your weight as a voter to the proxy, you essentially give your staked weight to the proxy. If you change proxy, the weight just gets transferred to the next proxy. Another cool feature we've added with proxies is if, let's say, the proxies are primarily meant for block producers, and a block producer, if you proxied your weight for the block producer, it will go for that weight. However, the proxy might have a different weight for a different proposal, so you can override your proxy's decision. So if you proxy your weight to a proxy, and then you vote for a different proposal that is the opposite of the proxy, you can actually override that weight. Does that answer your question? So you, as a token holder, you have the last say. So if you don't agree with the proxy's decision, you could just say, no, you said yes, I'm going to override it, and you just go vote, and that trumps that proposal's weight.
If you look at the current political system, very often you have votes that happen when people are not here, like in the parliament or in the Senate. So people gather when it's like Christmas time or summer holidays, and they pass laws. How does the youth community get informed that a vote is happening, and how do we avoid whales to meet in secret and to pass some vote or some?
So one thing I'll clarify is what we've built here is a tool for the community and not necessarily a process or defined clear rules on. So now we have a tool that you can ask a question and you can prove to the community that we have appetite for it. It's going to be up to us as a community to really define a process and perhaps even submit proposals to better define the rules. Because right now all the rules that we're working on is that Article 11 of the Constitution is as specific as the rules have gotten, and it's a legitimate challenge. What are we going to do about how do we make sure we keep the attention of token holders on the proposals that really matter? We're going to likely have spam. People submitting proposals like everybody gets a pony. How do we make sure that we're bringing attention to the proposals that really matter, and how do we make sure it maintains the attention, and how do we make sure everyone gets a chance to vote? Everyone will have 120 days. That's built into the rules. And then outside of that, it's as a proposer, you have if you're proposing something, you're going to want that proposal to be successful and to pass. So it's up to you to kind of make sure you really craft it, maybe do some campaigning before you post it, get involved in the Telegram channels, maybe speak to some block producers to get them to sponsor your proposal. Over time, I wouldn't be surprised if we see groups that become very proficient at doing proposals and submitting referendums, and then maybe becoming a service provider, helping other people, becoming a trusted source of proposals that always gets kind of prioritized and all the UIs point to it. And the other cool thing is by having these decentralized UIs, we allow the UIs to decide how they filter. So it's a free market. Different UIs may have a different approach, and you know, hopefully the best approach will win, and we'll see you know, a platform emerge that really gets it right in terms of showing the token holders the proposals they want to see and hiding the ones that are useless. But again, it's not for us to determine. It's going to be kind of a community effort. Any other questions? All right, thanks everybody for having us.